July 4th. Fireworks, flags, the sound of the national anthem in the distance. Families gathering across America for the 250th birthday of the United States. Now imagine this. On the south lawn of the White House, the most famous address in the world, a massive black octagon sits under the summer sky. Fighters pacing inside, gloves on, mouthpieces in, Dana White at cage side. The president watching from the front row, and millions, no hundreds of millions, watching from around the globe. This isn't a dream. This isn't some fan fantasy cooked up on social media. This is real. The UFC is bringing the fight game to the White House. Dana White made it official, confirming what was once only a rumor whispered in political and fight circles. On July 4th, 2026, the UFC will host a full fight card on the south lawn of the White House, broadcast live on CBS for the world to see. The announcement wasn't made with any quiet press release. It came with the confidence, the swagger, the absolute conviction that only Dana White brings when he's pulling the trigger on something historic. And make no mistake, this is history. The UFC has fought in stadiums, in arenas, on islands, even inside empty gyms during the pandemic. But never here, never at the front doorstep of the leader of the free world. The idea came from President Donald Trump himself, a man who has been intertwined with the UFC since its earliest days. When casinos and major venues wouldn't touch the sport, Trump opened his doors at his Atlantic City properties, giving the UFC a home when few would. That loyalty has never been forgotten. And now, with America's 250th anniversary approaching, Trump saw the perfect opportunity for something unprecedented. Reports say that during an Independence Day rally, he mentioned the idea offhand, almost like a dare to himself. Dana White, always the opportunist, took it seriously. Within weeks, the two were in meetings, with Ivanka Trump reportedly taking an active role in the planning. The event will not be a small exhibition. The UFC is building a legitimate card, complete with title implications, elite fighters, and the same production standards you see in Las Vegas or Madison Square Garden. The South Lawn will be transformed into a stadium environment with stands for VIPs, dignitaries, military veterans, and select fans. Security will be tighter than Fort Knox. Every single person entering the grounds will undergo background checks. Secret Service snipers will be stationed on rooftops. Every fighter, coach, and camera operator will be cleared and tracked. It will be unlike any UFC venue before it. And then there's the broadcast. The UFC's $7.7 billion deal with Paramount Plus and CBS means this event will be shown free to millions of households, breaking from the pay-per-view model for one of the biggest shows in company history. It's a play for massive reach, for mainstream dominance, and for making sure this fight card is remembered as the most watched in UFC history. The symbolism of the date and location is intentional. July 4th, 2026 is not just another holiday, it's the quarter-millennium celebration of America. There will be military flyovers, live musical performances, and an opening ceremony designed to rival the biggest sporting spectacles in history. The fighters? That's where speculation has run wild. Conor McGregor has already thrown his name into the mix, saying on social media that it would be his honor to fight on the White House lawn for America's 250th birthday. He's not American, but his friendship with both Dana White and Donald Trump, plus his unmatched star power, make him an obvious candidate. Colby Covington, the self-proclaimed most patriotic fighter in the UFC, is another name being tossed around. Jorge Masvidal, who retired but remains close to the promotion, could return for a payday and the glory of being part of this history. Khamzat Chimaev, if healthy, could headline in a blockbuster middleweight clash. Even Jon Jones' name has been whispered, the thought of the greatest fighter of all time walking out on the White House lawn sending shivers down the spine of fight fans everywhere. But this is more than just about who fights. This is about what the event represents. The UFC has always been about spectacle, about pushing boundaries, about finding the next great stage to showcase the most primal sport in the world. This event fuses combat sports with political theater, patriotism, and entertainment on a scale that's hard to even measure. It also raises questions. Some fans see this as a dangerous blending of sports and politics. They fear that by hosting the fight at the White House, The UFC is aligning too closely with one political side and risking alienating parts of its audience. Dana White has pushed back on that idea, saying it's not about politics, it's about America. It's about history. It's about giving the fight game a stage it has never had before. Still, the optics are undeniable. The president hosting a UFC event, surrounded by politicians, celebrities, and military figures, will create images that will live forever. For the fighters on the card, this could be career-defining. Win or lose, their names will be tied to a moment in history. And Dana White knows it. He's already promised the biggest fighter bonuses in UFC history for this card, with whispers of $500,000 performance checks and record-breaking purses for headliners. If McGregor fights, the payday could top $25 million, setting a new high for the UFC. From a business perspective, the decision is pure genius. It ensures the UFC dominates sports headlines during one of the most patriotic and widely viewed days of the year. Advertisers will line up to be associated with the event, from beer brands to sports apparel to patriotic sponsorships. The international audience will be massive, with fans tuning in not just for the fights, but for the novelty of the venue. Imagine the camera shots. The Octagon lit under the July sun, the White House in the background, the crowd roaring as fireworks explode above the city. The logistical challenges are enormous. This is the White House, not an arena. There are restrictions on everything from where cameras can be placed to how crowds can move. Fighter walkouts will have to be choreographed with precision to accommodate security and space limitations. There's also the question of who gets to attend. The South Lawn can only fit a few thousand people, and most of those seats will be for invited guests. Hardcore UFC fans might feel locked out of a historic moment they desperately want to experience in person. If this works, and Dana White is betting everything that it will, it could set a precedent for future fights in historic locations. Imagine the UFC staging a card under the Eiffel Tower, or at the Great Wall of China, or in front of the Sydney Opera House. The White House fight could be the first domino in a new era of event spectacle, where the location becomes as big a selling point as the fighters themselves. And then there's the legacy. For Dana White, pulling this off would be the ultimate exclamation point on his career. He's already transformed the UFC from a fringe blood sport to a global entertainment powerhouse. Staging a fight at the White House would cement his name not just in combat sports history, but in the broader cultural timeline. For fighters, the opportunity is equally huge. Belts can be lost, records can fade. But fighting at the White House? That's forever. That's something you tell your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. The UFC has done crazy things before. They've set up octagons on beaches, in deserts, in parking lots, in massive football stadiums. They've weathered scandals, controversies, and criticism. But July 4th, 2026 will be something different. It's not about breaking pay-per-view records or topping the last megacard. It's about planting the UFC flag literally on the most famous lawn in the world. It's about showing that MMA has reached the highest levels of cultural acceptance, where it can share space with the political, historical, and ceremonial heart of America. When the day comes, the images will be surreal. The president stepping into the octagon to greet the fighters. The roar of the crowd as the first punch lands. The stars and stripes waving in the background as warriors go to battle. Fireworks exploding over Washington, D.C. as champions lift their belts under the night sky. And somewhere, Dana White watching it all unfold, knowing he pulled off the most ambitious event in UFC history. Whether you love it or hate it, whether you think it's a masterstroke or a political gamble, there's no denying one thing: you'll remember where you were when the UFC fought at the White House. On July 4th, 2026, combat sports will write a new chapter in American history. And the whole world will be watching.